Alright, let's do this. So this is the Nothing Phone 3 and this is also the Nothing Phone 3. That's right, I bought two Nothing Phone 3, so if anyone from Guinness World Records is watching, please can I get my name in your books now? Because I don't think anyone else in this world spent their money to own two of these. I'm just messing around. I didn't buy both of them. They're both review units loaned to me, and there's exactly one reason why I needed two Nothing Phone 3s in the first place. So instead of just me using the phone, gathering my experience and making a review, I wanted to do something different for Nothing's first flagship smartphone. Since I have someone in the office who's been a faithful Nothing fan for as long as I can remember. Actually, bye. Say hello to our viewers. He's been using the Nothing Phone 2 for over a year now, and I can't stress enough how excited he was about finally upgrading to the Phone 3. Now, do you guys remember how happy Michael was when Toby was finally leaving the office? Yeah, multiply that by 10x and you might have a rough idea of how psyched he was for this guy, forwarding every little leaks and rumors to the office group chat, setting up discussions for what Nothing could be cooking, and just hyping it up like crazy to the point where his enthusiasm honestly felt a little annoying. But when the first official looking renders of the Phone 3 hit the internet, everything changed. It was like how Toby came back to the office and all Michael could do was scream, "No, God!" We even placed a bet actually on whether those leaked images were actually real. I was on the side saying those images were 100% real, while he would not believe it. I think a design-first company would never design something so ugly, were his exact words. Although on July 2, the very next day after the launch event, he was paying for ice cream for everyone at the office. So, thanks Nothing. Even I'm not a fan of how the Phone 3 looks, to be honest. I've had it in my pocket for almost a month now, and I thought it would grow on me after a while, but I don't think that's happening. The asymmetry of it all is throwing me off every time I look at it. I'm always a big fan of different. Different is good, but apparently there was a limit to how much different I could digest, and the Phone 3 is just too much for me. And I've got to talk about this new Glyph matrix too, because the usual light show is gone, replaced by this circular monochromatic LED display called Glyph matrix that's supposed to be more functional, more intuitive. I'll definitely admit that there's a lot of benefit to having a proper, rich visual interface instead of just some flashing lights. For example, this essential notifications is probably my favorite feature on the Nothing Phone 3, and it helps me stay focused by lighting up only when I get notifications from apps that are important to me. I can get super nitpicky and create my own rules for WhatsApp contacts or keywords that get to notify me, and I can also customize them with emojis or even a photo from my gallery, but they actually honestly look terrible on this tiny dot matrix display. The Glyph matrix also has a few other tricks up its sleeve, including a clock, a battery level visualizer, a cool but useless viewfinder to take selfies, a couple of games like rock, paper, scissors, spin the bottle, and also a stopwatch, which might be the most stupidly designed thing I've seen recently. So the way I interact with these Glyph toys, as Nothing likes to call them, is from this small capacitive button right here. The only problem with this design for a stopwatch is that I now need a stopwatch for my stopwatch because there's a whole lot of delay in starting and stopping the stopwatch. The even bigger issue I have with this Glyph matrix is that it's just not as cool as the Glyph lights. Now, I may be in the minority on this one, but man, it looks kind of boring compared to the full of life punk rock aesthetics of having all those light strips glow up on older Nothing phones, especially on the Phone 2. Why did you like the Glyph matrix or Glyph lights?
Glyph light interior, this had so much character to it, but that, see?
Okay, keeping aside all my complaints for a moment, I must say this is an incredibly well-built phone with nice weight distribution and metal frames, and this is also the first Nothing phone to come with a proper IP68 rating, but for what's supposed to be a flagship phone, Nothing has sure made some bizarre compromises with the Phone 3. Like how it uses a much inferior Gorilla Glass 7i for the display instead of the newer and stronger 2nd gen Victus Glass, a slower USB 2.0 port instead of USB 3.2, even the display experience here is not flagship enough. Sure, it's big, it's bright, it's got lovely uniform bezels on all four sides. The touch response feels nice and quick, and the haptics are super crisp and sharp as well. But the reason I say this display is not flagship is because once again, nothing decided to make some bizarre compromises here. Like how there's no LTPO to save power by dropping the refresh rate to just 1 Hz. It can only swing between 60 and 120 Hz. This awkwardly placed fingerprint reader is also an optical one instead of the usual ultrasonic fingerprint reader we see on most flagship phones. And since Nothing does not ship any bloatware apps on its phones and Netflix does not give HDR certification without having its app pre-installed, there is no HDR playback on Netflix, so Netflix binge sessions could also feel somewhat dull. Even in terms of performance, the Nothing Phone 3 does not come with the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip as we all expected from a true flagship. Nothing actually went for the next best thing, the Snapdragon 8s Gen 4, the same chip that you can find on some smartphones that literally cost half as much as the Nothing Phone 3. And if you look at all sorts of benchmarks, it's obvious that Qualcomm's second best processor is a lot less underpowered than its very best in every single thing. But I think both of us agreed right away that its 8 Elite absence would not be such a massive deal though. As I expected, I cannot remember a single time when I felt like the Phone 3 couldn't keep up with whatever I was doing, including gaming. The one little annoying thing that ruins the fun here is the Phone 3 gets hot. In fact, its thermals are actually worse than some of the compact phones that I have tested recently. And the worst part is that Nothing Phone 3 tends to warm up when I'm doing something as basic as scrolling the social media as well. So I'm not sure if the blame is on Qualcomm for its thermally unimpressive chip, Nothing for its poor cooling solution, or both. I guess it's both. The only aspect where the Phone 3 acts and feels like a true flagship is in the software department. The animation, the design, and the overall user experience, everything feels so thought out, so purposeful, and right how it should be. There are also some new and useful AI-infused features like Essential Search. It's a really cool feature that lets me search through everything from my files, my contacts, my messages, do some basic math, unit conversions, or even get answers using AI right from the search bar. I have been using something similar on my MacBook with Raycast, so you can only imagine how psyched I was for Nothing's Essential Search. Alright, so far I haven't touched two things about the Nothing Phone 3, its battery life and its cameras. And you may have guessed already, both of them are a couple of steps below what I'd expect from a flagship phone. The battery thing was especially surprising because the Phone 3 actually has a pretty decent 5500 mAh silicon carbon battery in India, or a slightly smaller 5150 mAh one on the global unit. We have both of them at our office, and man, it had been quite a while since I had battery anxiety on a phone. It struggles to go through the entire day if it's a particularly busy one where I'm taking a lot of photos and videos, using mobile data and navigation while also passing time with some games in my free time. And like 6 to 6.5 hours of screen time was all we managed to get out of this guy before having to plug it in. Next is the cameras. The Phone 3 brings a 50 megapixel sensor across the board for selfies, ultra-wide 1x and 3x zoom shots, so hardware-wise things seem pretty solid, even though its periscope camera is weirdly smaller and slower than the one on Nothing's cheaper Phone 3a Pro. But not to worry, I said to myself, because the Nothing Phone 3 has a superior image sensor with that 8s Gen 4 chip, and Nothing must have optimized its cameras the best it could too. So for what it's worth, I found the Phone 3's casual point-and-shoot experience to be pretty solid. The camera app also feels pretty intuitive, and it looks like I'm getting a thumbs up from our Nothing fanboy on both of these things that I just said. From colors to dynamic range and details, I've shot a bunch of amazing photos with this phone, and I don't know how Nothing did it, but the Phone 3's selfies and low-light photos are simply fantastic. I have no complaints there. But you know, that consistency I expect whenever I'm carrying a flagship phone in my pocket is sadly missing on the Phone 3. Its ultra-wide lens is the weakest of the bunch. It clearly struggles with things like dynamic range and color balance in challenging conditions. I also found the consistency among the lenses to be off, while it was almost always frustrating to shoot something close up because the Phone 3 would have no idea where to lock focus. Luckily, I did receive a software update that improved the sharpness of photos from the periscope camera by quite a bit, including when shooting portraits, although I still think the way it handles skin tones and shadows seems off every now and then. I actually compared its cameras with the Galaxy S25 as well, just to see where Nothing's flagship phone stands, and if I had to rate those two, I'd give the Phone 3's cameras a solid B+, while Galaxy S25 earns a solid A. Even when it comes to videos, the Phone 3 can shoot up to 4K 60fps from all of its 4 cameras, and while the footage itself looks pretty decent, minus the slightly wonky stabilization if I make any sort of sharp movement, the sad part is that I can't really switch between all the lenses while shooting at 4K 60fps. If I start recording from the main cameras, I can't switch to the ultra-wide lens in the middle of recording, and if I start recording from the ultra-wide camera, I can't switch to the zoom lens. It's just not what I would call flagship level at all. Alright, so after all is said and done, I think it's pretty clear that the Nothing Phone 3 has been a pretty major letdown, not just to critics like me, but also to most hardcore Nothing fanboys who were truly excited for the company's first flagship phone. The pricing is absurd, the product itself does not live up to Nothing's flagship promises, the Phone 3 feels underplanned, underdesigned, and ultimately underwhelming. That's as simple as I can put it. So why on earth did Nothing price the Phone 3 at a whopping 80,000 rupees in India? It's even more expensive than what buyers in the US are paying. And that's shocking considering India is Nothing's biggest market and the place where this phone is actually manufactured. My Nothing fanboy colleague was so stunned he thought this was a prank. He literally went through all 5 stages of grief before finally accepting the bitter truth. But here's my theory on why Nothing went with this insane pricing. They don't really want to sell this phone right now. Instead, I think Nothing is using a classic anchoring strategy. Stage 1, shock and headlines, launch it at a sky-high price so everyone talks about it and lines it up against Apple and Samsung. Stage 2, the correction, a few months later roll out heavy bang plus exchange offers, which we're already seeing on Flipkart right now, or a straight price cut. Suddenly it's available for 50,000 rupees and the narrative flips, wait, this is a flagship level phone for 50,000. Stage 3, the second review wave of reviewers revisit it, new thumbnails, new headlines, fresh hype. This way, Nothing gets a second launch moment without spending a dime on marketing. And that's the key, because unlike Samsung, Oppo or Vivo who throw crores into marketing, Nothing just does not have that luxury. They're a small brand. So this two-wave launch creates buzz, controversy, that conversion all organically. It's a free marketing at scale. By the way, it's a playbook that we've seen before. Samsung's Galaxy S24 FE was launched at 60,000 rupees and now it's selling like hotcakes at 35,000 rupees. So I believe the bottom line here is that Nothing priced the Phone 3 to make noise, not numbers. The real sales story starts when it slides into that 50,000 price with offers. Until then, the 80,000 Nothing headline is doing exactly what it was meant to do. Keep the brand in the same sentence as Apple and Samsung before the discounts make it look like a killer value all over again. Alright everyone, that was all for our not so short and sweet review of the Nothing Phone 3. Do you agree with what we said in the video? If you do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Saying this, I'm Pratima and thank you so much for watching.